MLB DFS picks Sunday afternoon, June 23rd. It's a Paul Skeens day. Play Paul Skeens. You don't need to overthink it. You can pretty much play him against anyone. His price is not really as high as it probably should be, getting more stretched out. His numbers check out. He's in a pitcher's park and a favorable matchup against Tampa that strikes out 24% of the time, below average WRC plus, not much power. Done. Now, also in that matchup, Aaron Savali, I can see playing them both. I know you can't get the win bonus for both of them, but I could very easily see Skeens not getting the win because he doesn't get run support because he plays for Pittsburgh, and Savali getting the win bonus and having a very solid day against Pittsburgh. Strikes out 25% of the time, no power, below average WOBA, really low WRC plus versus righties. Everything checks out. Skills interactive ERA much better than his ERA, 24% K rate. Sure, he gives up a little bit too many fly balls, maybe a little bit too much hard contact. Should get away with that in this matchup. His last outing wasn't very good, but he did face Minnesota. Pitched pretty well against Chicago. Had to do a back-to-backer against Baltimore, Kansas City. Been facing some pretty tough teams of late and still being respectable. Now he gets a pretty soft matchup against Pittsburgh. No problem going there. Nestor Cortez, I did not like him in his last start, and he pitched really well. He is pitching really well this year. But I can't roster him against Atlanta, and I'm much happier to go over to the other side with Atlanta, who is hitting lefties with a 177 ISO, 334 WOBA, 114 WRC plus. You get the ballpark advantage, and Atlanta's been really hot. Now, Atlanta does strike out, so Cortez could be a contrarian option, but I don't think I need to get that cute when I've got Skeens here and Savali in a solid matchup early in the day. And if you don't stack Atlanta, I still believe there'll be options with Atlanta. Nick Lodolo versus Boston. Yes, there are always going to be concerns at Great American Ballpark, but Lodolo always pitches there, so he knows what he's doing. And Cincinnati is a massive minus 154 favorite. Now, a lot of that's because Boston's rolling out a guy that'll probably throw an inning or two in Zach Kelly, and then rely on the bullpen. And also, hey, let's put some respect on Lodolo. 2.76 ERA for a guy that pitches in Cincinnati. 26% K rate. He's been a K machine. 13% swinging strike rate. And oh, by the way, when it comes to Boston, yeah, they have some power, although they have not shown it this weekend in Cincinnati. They strike out 29% of the time against lefties. Huge situation, 4 Ks. You look at Lodolo in his last start, 7 innings, 1 earned run, just 4 hits, and 8 Ks. So I like Lodolo. Skeen's still number 1 in our hearts and minds. Lodolo, number 2 on our board early in the day. Going down here, like I don't want to go with Kikuchi facing Cleveland. Pass. Tristan McKenzie, this is a guy I want to target. Why? He walks a lot of batters. And again, I talk a lot about how Cleveland, the ball flies out there in right field. And if I'm happy to roster lefties for Cleveland, like Jose Ramirez last night, who I wrote about in my DK article saying, take his home run prop. He hit a home run. I think it was plus 600, plus something like that. Hit, good, great. So if I'm going to roster Cleveland, then I'm going to roster Toronto as well. And you've got Tristan with a 344 xWOBA, 506. Sierra, walking a lot of batters, giving up fly balls, ballpark flies out and right. So if you want to look at Toronto lefties, look a little bit deeper at Tristan's stats, and they actually could be a lot worse than they are. 247 BABIP. Now, it's typical for a fly ball pitcher to have a lower BABIP, but that should normalize a little bit more and come closer to 300. He's already giving up 1.9 home runs per 9. And then an 81% strand rate. So he is fortunate that he is getting out of jams. Balls are finding gloves. Now, again, that fly ball pitchers typically have that happen. But it's a dangerous spot to be in. And again, I think Cleveland's a dangerous park to pitch in. The only concern is Toronto's just not that good of an offense. And so McKenzie could get away with it again. But again, 4.96 xFIP. He is a pitcher that we can target. Going down, Bryce Miller, Seattle against Miami. It's very typical on the show. You always target Miami, especially when you get a game in Miami. So we get the ballpark advantage for the pitcher. Miami not hitting, doesn't give us a lot of strikeouts. Bryce Miller, very solid. Minus 176 favorite on the road. Numbers all check out. Good Sierra, good. ERA, a 24% K rate. We like it. What did he do in his last outing? Not so great. He did go 5-2, only 2 earned runs. Let's pull up Bryce and look at the game log. I think his matchups might have been kind of tricky. Obviously, this one's going to be the easiest matchup he's had in some time. So he faced Cleveland. Tough matchup. But you go to the game before that when he had a soft matchup like you will have today against Chicago White Sox at home in the pitcher's ballpark, 29 fantasy points. Tough matchup against Kansas City, yikes. Softer matchup against the Angels, 33 fantasy points. Definitely like going to Bryce Miller in this spot. And how much does he cost? $8,100, very affordable. Kyle Tyler just got called up from the minors. Not a lot of major league experience. He is going to jump in. And again, we love targeting Miami. We also love targeting Seattle. Striking out 28% of the time against righties. Not a lot of pop in this offense either. They've been cold of late. Below average in everything over the last week. Miami's ballpark will do that to you, especially if you are Seattle. So you kind of got to ignore these stats for Kyle Tyler because it's just like one inning of pitching. But if you look at his minor league work this year, and especially his work in the month of June, 3 starts, AAA, he has not allowed a run. 19 innings pitched, 10 hits, no earned runs, 11 strikeouts. Not a big strikeout guy, but then again, if you look at May, he gave up some runs, 10 in 21 innings in May, but he struck out 18 batters in those 21 innings. Pretty solid pitcher. Pretty good matchup, pretty safe spot. And again, we look, 7.5. And it's really not, like typically we see a kid like this come up and get a $7,600 price tag. It's just a good spot, and he's looked good in the minors. Jonathan Cannon, we like again, targeting Detroit. We like targeting Chicago. And so we don't really want anything to do with either of these offenses, but we can take Cannon. We can take Reese Olson. Maybe Olson finally gets himself a win today. We look at, we got to pull up Olson's just sad stats. He is 1-8 on the season, and yet he does a great job of keeping the ball on the ground, keeping the ball out of being hit out of the ballpark, just 0.5 home runs per 9. Doesn't get a lot of Ks, but he's got a 3.68 ERA, a 3.77 xFIP. He just does not get any run support. He has a matchup where he can finally get a win, or a second win. We look at Chicago, 24% K rate, ISO low, WOBA low, just a 76 WRC plus versus righties. Over the last week, they've been even colder, a 61 WRC plus. Ballpark is a pretty safe place to pitch. Maybe it's the day for Reese. But we also have to consider Jonathan Cannon facing a Detroit team that really doesn't have any offense either, 24% K rate against righties. And they've been ice cold over the last week. A 30 WRC plus over the last week. Whoa. Maybe Olson won't get any run support and lose. So maybe you want to consider this plus 154 for Chicago. Maybe. Possibly. I want to look at Cannon's recent outings, though. Even though I don't think you have to in this matchup, I just want to become a little bit more familiar with Mr. Cannon. 8 2/3 innings, just 7 hits allowed, 17 ground balls. Pretty strong. You like to see that. Not very many Ks, but then against a softer team in Seattle, doesn't give up but just 1 run in 7 innings, 7 strikeouts. Yeah, you like Jonathan Cannon. White Sox have some interesting pitchers on a really bad team. Moving down, Cincinnati playing in Cincinnati. This isn't so much Kelly. He'll probably go an inning or 2 innings. But Cincinnati in Cincinnati, yeah, sign me up. I don't think I need to take Framber and play with Baltimore or Suarez and play around with targeting Houston. Sonny Gray, if you got the money to pay, you play Gray. every week, every 5 days, 6 days, we have a slate with Skeens and Gray. And so far, they're priced at the top. And so far, they live up to the price point. And again, you have Gray in a pretty good matchup. Average ballpark. San Francisco doesn't strike out a lot, but they also aren't really putting up very many points either. No problem going to Gray. I'd rather go with Skeens, but, Gray got 31% K rate. All the numbers check out. You have a 7.5 run total. And then again, similar to the Skeens situation, we've got another decent pitcher in that matchup in Logan Webb facing St. Louis, who's not really hitting, maybe hitting a little bit better than San Francisco. Pretty average ballpark to pitch in. Although it's saying that, this is more of a pitcher's park, I would argue that St. Louis in the middle of the summer is going to start to heat up more. 57% ground ball rate. K rate is much lower, but still he's not walking batters. 2.99 ERA, 3.34 skills interactive. Going on down. I don't really know what to do with Scherzer coming back. I will pass. Alec Marsh, I will also pass. Liked him in his last start. Had a pretty favorable matchup. He's an above average pitcher, but he did not have a good start in that matchup. So that hurt. 7 earned runs. Missed on that one. Yikes. Colorado is not on the slate or any of the slate, so we can skip past that. Pablo Lopez, again, a team that we love to target, is Oakland. Big time favorite for Pablo, minus 178, 8 earned run, or 8 run total. Lopez has pitched a lot better than his numbers indicate. He's got a 5.63 ERA, but his skills interactive is 3.37 with the Sierra, 26% K rate. We love that. Big time swinging strike rate. And it's an Oakland team that loves to strike out 27% of the time. And let's go ahead and pull up Lopez's recent game log because I think his last outing was a struggle against Minnesota. Oh, he's not going to pull up on here. But you have to take my word for it. In favorable matchups, he's been absolutely fine. Last matchup, I believe he struggled against Minnesota, 4 innings pitched, 5 earned runs. In softer matchups, Pablo is good. Rounding out the last ones I want to talk about, Hogan Harris and Tobias Myers. Hogan Harris is a quality pitcher. Tobias Myers has been on an absolute hot streak. I've been recommending Tobias, but now he draws a much tougher matchup. And his overall season numbers are okay, and they're going to get better as he develops. 3.26 ERA is still pretty good, but I expect his Sierra to drop as well. He has been limiting hard contact. Maybe gets up a little too many fly balls, but I like being on the San Diego side. San Diego offense is really coming to life. They don't strike out very much. I know Tobias Myers is on a heater, but he has played some pretty soft teams. Hogan Harris has been a very solid quality pitcher and has strung together some pretty good games. And again, 2.37 ERA, but the skills interactive is much higher. He's given up a good bit of hard contact, a good bit of fly balls, and he's facing a Minnesota team that's hitting. Now, if we look a little bit closer at his other stats for both of these pitchers, and a reason why I think you can target them, let's see. We'll start with Hogan. We'll just compare them both. Hogan, 1.4 home runs per 9. Tobias, 1.8 home runs per 9. Not good. Let's look at these next 2 numbers. Now, they are fly ball pitchers, so their BABIPs are always going to be a little on the lower end as compared to ground ball pitchers who see those ground balls sneak through. But a 2.34 BABIP for Harris and a 2.38 for Myers, there's going to be some regression. Those numbers have got to come back up to 300. They're going to have to give up more hits. And when that does, these low ERAs are going to look more like their xFIPs in the 4s. They're very much players that you can attack. Now, on top of that, low BABIP, and another number I like to look at for regression is their strand rate. Not only are balls finding gloves for Harris and Myers, so they're giving up contact, it's ending up in a glove and as an out. Eventually, some of those are going to fall. And also, those are going to fall when people are on base. Right now, they're not falling, and they're getting caught, and these guys are getting out of jams. 86% strand rate for Hogan Harris, 84 for Tobias Myers. So we've got to give them some respect. They are getting out of jams. But we could also make a strong argument that they've been pretty fortunate. And they've been fortunate, and Myers has also had some pretty softer matchups. So today could be a day where things kind of reverse a little bit for Myers. And I'm not saying he's getting completely blown up, but I don't expect him to go out and have another insane outing. Like he had 2 games ago where he went, 8 innings and struck out almost 10 batters. In his last outing, he went 6, no earned runs. He's been solid. Hogan Harris has been a solid quality pitcher. But I think in tougher matchups today, both of them are going to trend in the wrong direction. Maybe you don't have to stack those teams, but I do like the offenses in Minnesota and San Diego. That'll do it. Thanks for joining me. Just to recap, Paul Skeens at the top of my board. Sonny Gray is there as well. I think I would go number 2 with Lodolo because of the strikeout upside in a matchup against Boston. I know it's scary in Cincinnati, but Boston really has not put any runs on the board this week, and they draw their toughest matchup of the series. Toronto, I think you can also play Cleveland if you want in terms of offense. I like some of the Atlanta bats in New York. Stacking Cincinnati seems like a pretty solid play. 9.5 run total against, it's probably going to be a long bullpen day for Boston. And then I like Minnesota and San Diego down here. These are going to be in your afternoon slates. Yep, that'll do it. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, share.